Good day, seniors. In this video lesson, we'll be having a technique in finding the area of a polygon given its vertices on the Cartesian plane. This method is called the Shoelace Method. Now, as you can see, the vertices are given x1. This is a triangle, by the way. Obviously, x1, y1, x2, y2, x3, y3. The Shoelace method works like this. If the coordinates of a convex polygon are given, so these are the vertices, the area of the triangle can be obtained by the formula A equals 1/2, then a matrix of this form, x1, y1 for the first column, x2, y2, x3, y3, and then x1, y1. Before I elaborate this formula, notice that it's moving around in a direction, in this case a clockwise direction, and the matrix simply means 1/2 of the absolute value of this difference, x1, y2, x2, y3, x3, y1. You will add this up, subtract the sum of the other three, x2, y1, x3, y2, x1, y3. Of course, it will be very difficult and mahirap na kabisaduhin yung formula na yan. So, I will guide you the process through the examples. So, example number 1. Find the area of the triangle with vertices -2, 3, 2, 5, and 5, -1. As you can see, the vertices are already plotted, and the polygon is of course a triangle. Now, the first step is set up the matrix. So, the area is 1/2. This matrix, and of course we will start with the coordinate, so you can choose any of the three. Say let's start with 2, 5. So let's put it 2, 5, first column. Then it's up to you really to choose a direction, whether clockwise or counterclockwise, doesn't matter. Let's do it the other way this time, in a counterclockwise direction. So let's move here. So the next coordinate is -2, 3. There, and the next coordinate is 5, -1. That's 5 and the -1, and then we end up where we started, so 2, 5. Now, A equals 1/2. I said it will be the absolute value. This symbol is not an absolute value. It's a symbol for the matrix. In the second row, this is now the absolute value, and I've shown you that it's the absolute value of the difference of a sum of two groups, so x1, x2, x2, y3. Now look at this, x1, y2 is actually this, x2, y3 is this, x3, y1 is this. So you see that, and then we will subtract the sum of these three products, these pairs. x2, y1 is this, x3, y2 is this, x1, y3 is this. So as you can see, this looks like a shoelace. That's why the method is called the shoelace method. Now, let's do it here. So the first thing would be 2, 3. So let's get the product. The product. But before that, let's have it a first group and then subtract a second group. So let's have 2, 3 first. The product is 6. The next would be multiply this, -2, -1. That's a +2. Therefore, we add the +2. Next would be 5 times 5. Let's just mark it so we're consistent and we're guided. So that's 5 times 5. That's 25. Now that's the first group. Then we will subtract the second group, which is the product of this time the other direction. We have here -2 times 5. You know it's what? -2 times 5 is -10. Next would be 5 times 3. I'll write it in red. 5 times 3. And you know it's 15. So let's write +15. And of course, lastly, this 2 and -1. product is negative 2. So this should be a plus negative 2 or a minus 2. So all we need to do is just simplify this expression. Absolute value, 6 plus 2 plus 25 would be 33. Minus, this is a negative 10 plus 5 is a positive 5 minus 2, that's 3. A positive 3, so it's a minus positive 3. So the area is 1/2 the absolute value of 30. And you know it is still 30. So 1/2 of 30 is 15. So the area of the triangle in example 1 is 15 square units. That's it. Let's go to the next example. Find the area of the quadrilateral. This time we have 4 vertices given. It's a quadrilateral. So it basically is still the same step. Set up the matrix. Remember, the first step is the matrix, not the absolute value. That's why I'm making this bar bigger and longer. So let's pick a point, starting point. Let's say this point again, 2, 4. And then we move clockwise or counterclockwise. It's really up to you. But for me, I have been accustomed to moving in this direction, counterclockwise. So my next vertex is negative 2, 1. Let's put it here. Then my next vertex is this one. Negative 4, negative 2. Then the next vertex is this, 4, 0. And remember, we will end where we started, 2, 4. There. And then we apply the shoelace. This is just, remember, this is the matrix. And now we will do the formula, the shoelace. Now this is the absolute value. We will have 2 groups here. Okay, then the first group would have to be, so I'll mark them simultaneously, this, negative 8, that, and that. So let's just write the products one at a time. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. 1 times negative 4 is plus negative 4 or a minus 4. Negative 2 times 4 is again a minus 8, a plus negative 8. 0 times 2 is 0. So just write plus 0. Although hindi natin kailangan sulat, but sinulat ko pa rin. Now, the other group, the sum of which we will subtract from the first group, would have to be this. That's why it's called the shoelace. There. And 2 times 1, that's 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 is 8 plus 4. Negative 4 times 0 is a plus 0. And then 4 times 4 is a plus 16. There. And all we need to do is simplify this. So it's an absolute value. Negative 8 minus 4 minus 8 is negative 20. Minus this group, the sum of this group is 2, 4, 16, that's 22. Minus a positive 22. So all we have is a 1/2 absolute value of negative 42. And of course, the absolute value of negative 42 is 42 times 1/2. The answer is 21. So the area of this region is 21 square units. Now, let me answer the same problem. This time we will be moving in the other direction and we'll be starting with a different point. Just to show you that it will still work. The formula will still work. Okay. So we will start. The area is 1/2. And then let's set up the matrix. This time we will start with negative 2, 1. And then we will move this time clockwise. So you have 2, 4. Then you have this 4, 0. Then the next negative 4 and negative 2. Then the next -2, 1. We will end where we started. Notice that always the row we started is the column. The first column is the same as the last column. So we will now set up the shoelace. So area equals 1/2. Now this time it's an absolute value, not the matrix symbol. So you know we have two groups here. There. And then the first group would be the sum of the products of this I'm marking pairs. Let's write the pairs. The product of the pairs. -2 times 4 is -8. 2 times 0 is 0. 4 times -2 is a -8, so it would be a -8. And the -4 times 1 is a -4. Now the other group, which is the sum of the products of these pairs I'm marking. Okay, let's write this in that group. 2 times 1 is 2. 4 times 4 is a 16. A positive. -4 times 0 is still 0. -2 times -2 is a +4. So we get here 1/2. The absolute value of the difference of the two groups. The first group will be -20. Then the minus. The sum of the second group is 22. So you have 1/2 absolute value of -42. And the absolute value of -42 is of course +42. And we will get 21 square units. Notice my second example and my third example. Still the second example, but I started with a different vertex and I move in the other direction instead of this. I started with 2, 4 and move in the counterclockwise direction. So it doesn't matter as long as you're consistent with what you're doing in the direction that you choose and with the point. It's very important. The point that you started, you also end in that point. So that's it. We'll continue with this next time. Good day, seniors.